August 23rd, 2021. This is Jim Jordan with Create Vibrant Health speaking to you from Cottonwood, Arizona. I'm visiting here from my home state of Oregon and loving my time here. There's no smoke here. There's a lot more freedom. I feel a lot more freedom here. Less restriction, less government interference in my life that I was experiencing in Oregon. So it's really a great experience. And I'm enjoying it here, but I wanted to give a little update on what's going on with the state of affairs regarding COVID-19 situation regulations. And the big news is that the FDA has approved the Pfizer vaccine, so-called vaccine, and that's going to be used, of course, by the government and by other state governments and local governments and businesses as a argument to justify mandating this shot. Let's not even call it a vaccine; it's a shot on employees, mandating passports and things like that. So that's going to be the next phase of this operation. So the question is, first of all, is it a legitimate approval by the FDA? And the answer is no. There's not been phase 3 clinical trials conducted. There's been no long-term trials to see the long-term side effects. So it is basically the approval is a fraud, and it was probably just ordered by the Biden regime to approve it, rubber stamp it, which was expected. But now there's going to be more battles, legal battles coming up as certain governments, some states will of course not do anything about this. Others will, like Oregon is going to try to use it. It's using it now to mandate health workers to have vaccines, and there's lots of ways to resist that. So the bottom line is there's still exemptions, but the biggest thing you can do, I mean, there's religious exemptions for healthcare workers, and there's many ways to work with that. And there's many websites that give you lots of different ways to resist this. So Peggy Hall's website, thehealthyamerican.com, is one of those. But the biggest thing to recognize from my perspective is that there is there's an illegitimate government that is sitting in Washington, D.C. that is not did not win the election. The agencies that are, whether it's CDC or FDA, are captured agencies, captured by business interests. The businesses that they're designed to regulate have captured their regulatory power, and thus they are no longer legitimately protecting the public health, specifically in the CDC and FDA's purview. So in a sense, we do not have, from my view, a legitimate government. So we're in a sort of occupied situation where there's some legitimate government at some state levels. There seems to be some legitimacy where the federal and state Bill of Rights are recognized by the governors. I can think of, like where I am now, Arizona is relatively good. Florida, Texas, South Dakota, Missouri. There's plenty of places where there's some operational government where the consent of the governed is still operating to some degree. And there's some courts that are operating in accordance with their legitimate powers too. They're following the rule of law. And in other cases, they're not. So it's a sort of a mishmash of legitimacy from my perspective, okay, from how I see it through my eyes. As you know, through my background, I was a lawyer, of course, and through my understanding of how the system should work. So the question is what can we do? What do we do? Obviously, we have to use every legal challenge possible that we have at our disposal. There's many ways to challenge these mandates as they come down, and there's what they may or may not prevail in the judicial system, and there is still a higher law than that. The higher law is natural law, and we know throughout history there have been, in authoritarian governments, they've used the judicial process to rubber stamp violations of fundamental human rights, whether it's a right, of blacks or other minorities to vote, or to own property, or whether it's Jews to own businesses in Nazi Germany or China to practice religion. So authoritarian governments will use the judicial process or regulatory process to rubber stamp its dictates, its mandates, its edicts. But that doesn't change that they're not legitimate law. They're not legitimate law because they've not been followed. They're not following fundamental law, which is natural law, separation of powers, yours, which is consent of the government, which is the basic principles that we've talked about, that I've talked about over many videos. So we have to sort of use our own discernment. So yes, we have to organize in terms of our legal process, our legal challenges, and also at the same time realize that the final say of everything is compliance, whether we comply or not. If it's an illegal law, an illegal executive order, you still have the option of complying or not complying. If you're a dental office and you're told by the governor you have to make sure that your dental and your staff is all vaccinated or given a shot, an experimental gene therapy shot, you can say no. You can challenge it on religious exemption grounds. You can challenge it on fundamental rights, to body autonomy grounds, healthcare freedom grounds. You can say no, and you can take whatever the consequences of that, the state level, and deal with that. So it's going to take courage. This is the time to step up. This is the time that every country that goes through a collapse of its legal process and fundamental trust in government has to go through. It's no longer trustworthy, collectively, at least from my view, that government, the judicial system, the electoral process can be trusted to deliver fair results and legal results, just results. So there is a way to still bring about justice and fairness, which is through each person making their own decision about what is correct to do in this circumstance, and following that with their conviction, with their courage, and organizing. I don't know. Protests are great, but ultimately it comes down to, are you going to ask people to show their vaccine passport if you're a restaurant? And if you do, sorry for you. And if you don't, good for you. Good for you. That's what we need to do. If you're a teacher and you say, I'm not going to get this shot, and you don't give in, you challenge your educational board, the state agency that's imposing on you. Challenge you, good for you. That's what you need to do. But if you give in and take it just because you want to get along, from my view, bad choice. There's a consequence of that. Whether you're getting the real shot or the placebo shot, either way, you're cooperating with a system that is basically designed to deprive you of your liberty and collapse the entire American economy and any semblance of freedom. That's my investigation has led me to that conclusion. So cooperation with evil is the downfall of America. It will not come from the imposition of laws or dictates or even authoritarian overt coercion from the deep state or whatever you want to call them. It will come from people, from free citizens choosing to give up their freedom, cooperating with evil. That is the only way we can come down. There's no other way. We do not cooperate. As Rand Paul said, they can't arrest millions of Americans who choose to go to church, who choose to not get these shots. They can't arrest everybody, even if there were laws in place that would do that, which currently there are not. So now is the time to make the stand. Now is the time to take your stand. Do not wait. It's not enough to do social media posting. It's not enough to protest or sign petitions. That's nothing. It's your choices. It's your individual choices. And the owners of stores, businesses are being asked right now to do the enforcement for the government because the government knows it's illegal for them to do it. Businesses are being pressured. We'll fine you if you don't force people to get masks. We'll fine you if you don't do vaccine passports or mandate these vaccines on your employees. Those businesses are the front line. Those are the people. This is your chance to stand up and be an American. This is your chance to stand up and do what's correct. Now, if you've not come to that conclusion yet, that's different. But if you've come to the conclusion that this is not correct to follow those edicts, then we'll see what are you made out of. Everybody's got to make a decision at some point. In my past, I've made many decisions which I thought were correct, legally correct and ethically correct, which have cost me in many ways. Well, that's the price of being a free person. You have no rights. You have no rights that you're not willing to fight and die for. That's Thomas Jefferson's famous quote. You don't have a right because it's written down somewhere. You don't get it from the Constitution. You get it from God. You get it from being a human being. And you preserve it through your willingness to fight. And fight means to take a stand. So say no. If you come to that conclusion, say no. Say no to these mandates. Say no to these vaccine passports. Say no to the masking nonsense. And if your parents stand up for your children, they're being suffocated by these masks. They're being poisoned by these shots. Have the courage to stand for your children, for future generations. So this is my message, August 23rd, as things get worse, and as I expected they would, with the new variant strain, which is being spread by the people that got these shots, being blamed on the people that didn't. It's just going to get worse, and that's what's necessary for it to get worse, to push people into the position where they have the courage to stand up and take a real stand, not just to say something, not just socially media your opinion, but to take a principled stand against tyranny, against medical tyranny, which is what we're experiencing throughout the world. And the world is looking to the United States because we have we have a difference. We have a system of government that has recognized individual rights throughout our history. We have a Bill of Rights that we inherited through our ancestors that reflects our natural rights, fundamental rights as human beings. And government's job is to protect those rights and serve us. It's been turned on its head, where people now are serving the corporate interests, the government is serving the corporate interests and the people are serving the corporate interests. Pharmaceutical companies, bankers, all this other crap. So there's much more complexity to this issue, and there's lots of other people that are putting out videos that go into the deeper geopolitical things going on and everything else. But this was my message, to hopefully light a fire under those who are on the fence and they know what they're being asked to do is wrong. For those that think they're doing the right thing, there's nothing to say to them. I'm not trying to persuade you. You've made your decision. But for those who know better, do not give in. You will regret giving in. You regret it from the mask level down to the shot level, down to the next thing they're going to impose on us. So now is the time to stand and be Americans. So this helps somebody. This is Jim Jordan with Create Vibrant Health, speaking to you from Cottonwood, Arizona. Wishing you a great day.